Most people only carry one. I have 3. I know a little bit about airplanes, okay?
I have a question for you.
Yes. Now, that's not finished, by the way. But go ahead.
Going through those wormholes and
Not going to ask you one?
well, I don't know.
I'm not a physicist.
It has to do with the question. With them going through these wormholes and stuff, like it's explained, do you think the possibility that they may be us, future-wise? Figure out how to go.
Somebody else want to answer that. I'm not qualified.
Gone through that and gone through that, and now they're all stretched out and bug-eyed.
Good question, but I'm not qualified. Who wants to take a stab at that one? Somebody want to stab at it? It's an interesting thought. I wouldn't be able to give you a qualified answer for response. Okay, if I move along, you good? Okay, the aircraft, as it disappeared, I told you, then I caught a glimpse of something else. I saw a flying cigar. Not like we see the pictures of, I saw it in detail. You've seen the pictures in the magazines, they're all fuzzy. I saw it in sharp detail. And it was poking along over there. Along just above the tree line, just enough for me to see it. I watched it for, before it disappeared behind the tree line, at least 20 seconds. Poking along real slow. The back port was very visible, and it was large. It does not have a little back port. It had a big back port. You've seen on the flying cigars, the hole of the port in the back. No windows or anything like that. Dull, dark gray. But the rings, the smoke, wow. In all the pictures in the magazines, most of them show it looks like a vapor of smoke coming and forming out the back nozzle. It's not what I saw. I clearly saw the rings of that smoke forming on around the aft fuselage. None coming out of the port. And it would form in like a dark, misty looking cloudy ring, like a smoke ring, around the aft end of the fuselage, what's called the dorsal end. And I watched them roll off as it moved forward in frequency. Like staged rings, like somebody blowing smoke rings. And that, I learned from that. I learned what nobody could tell me. I learned that these were being generated by some sort of reaction around the fuselage of that craft. Now as a 5-year-old, I couldn't deduct all of that. But somehow I was able to remember in detail all these things so that later in life I could go back and revisit and re-examine and try to make sense of all these things. So that was going to be my next point. About stigma. Dealing with the aftermath of encounter. Dealing with the aftermath of abduction is details. Be accountable first to who? Yourself. Be accountable. Go back and take review of what you think happened. Check yourself out. Find out, did it really happen? Was it a dream? Was it my imagination? And then begin to take account of the events and the details and see where the evidence takes you in your conclusion first. Because before you talk to somebody else, don't do like a certain person that's close to me in life did. They said, oh, one day we were driving along. They said, my sister. I love my sister. I mean, nothing bad about this. But she said, Alan, I saw something once. I got a little excited. I said, oh, tell me about it. Well, it was round, and it was up in the air. I said, okay. What? Oh, that's all. I said, no offense, but you see that tower, radio tower over there with that big disc antenna on top? It's round and it's up in the air. Help me out here. Throw me a bone. When you go to talking about your experiences, give them details. Give them everything you can draw from, truthfully and accurate. Be accountable to yourself, because you're going to have to answer for it. When you tell your friends, you're going to be labeled. Don't be ashamed of it. You know something. You experienced something, but make sure you did. Now, if you just have an interest in the UFO subject, that's wonderful. I thank my Maker for those who have an interest, because that gives us those we can talk to. You don't want to keep this bottled up. do we, Kathy? You don't want to go through life not being able to talk to nobody. Any other questions? Yes. Or comment?
I have to agree with your stigmata concept. I think it's true for anybody who's a real skeptic.
Let's talk loud.
Oh, everybody who's a skeptic, they're not going to believe you. So why would you tell them? I mean, I had that experience, and I just said, you know, when I saw it, I said, nobody's going to believe me. So why should I tell anybody? Simply because of that.
Yeah.
So I just
because you run into them in all areas of life, but for some reason, this particular subject area is one that their opinion builds a wall that it bounces back at you. And sometimes they will take advantage of what they consider to be a weak area and label you, stereotype, and try to categorize. I take it now as a challenge in the sense that I'll say, okay, let's talk about it. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. And if they don't believe it, if they don't accept it, that's their problem, not mine. Okay?
Well, I found out, well, I reasoned that since I was a skeptic and I didn't believe, I figured, you know, they're not going to believe anything I say until they see it themselves. So, you know, why would you tell anybody that's not seen anything?
Okay, on that comment, anyone else, you're free to jump in, by the way, just let us know. And I'll say this, and if anybody else wants to say, go ahead. Look at people like Stanton Friedman's work, because they have a lot of solid science and research that's available right there for them to go to and look at and consider. Because I don't give up on them just because they don't believe me. That's okay. They're entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. I try to be understanding, non-judgmental, and supportive of someone's situation. Just like I want them to be supportive of mine. I admit it was a problem for me in life. I couldn't always do that. I did not realize the kind of things that built into me that showed up in other ways. Some of the things that you do in your life because of things that are bottled up, you don't even know you're doing them for that reason. There's people that have instability in things that they would otherwise have stability in or management in. Marital relationships. Those insecurities come out. They surface. That's why we need discussion groups. That's why we need support groups. MUFON covers more than that. MUFON covers research. Research into details of sightings and all that. And I have a great interest in that. People who know me personally know that that fascinates me. It's part of my history. But that's not all. The thing that affects me more than what I have seen are the things that happen to me that are frightening. I am to this day afraid of being hypnotized. I'm a 60-year-old man. I've been at death's door before. I know what it's like to go under the knife and the doctor and not know you're going to come out. I've been there. I'm not easily scared. But I wondered, why can't I be hypnotized? I went to a couple of novice hypnotists before. Who do we have in here that does regressive recall or hypnotism? Kathy. Okay. Kathy, do you run into people that seem to be really hard to hypnotize sometimes? Or to fall into that hypnotic state? I didn't know why. I thought, well, I can't be hypnotized. I went to a couple of novices. I don't know how great they were. You know, I've seen people on documentaries that were better at dealing with the patient. And I couldn't get hypnotized. I wondered why. Something different about me physiologically, or what is it? It was a hidden protective mechanism I didn't know I had. It didn't want me to go there. Didn't want those memories to be but recalled. Okay? Learning to deal. I would have never known that if it wasn't for getting together with other people. Why do you think this? Why do you think that? It's a part of life I appreciate now. Like I'm going to join Kathy's group because she does that kind of work, or she's going to join mine and help in that kind of work. So that's the way I should have put it. Anybody else got any comments along those lines? Yes.
Well, I'm really glad that you're here sharing
Thank you.
what you have shared
Glad to be
because I appreciate it. I raced to get over here tonight because of the email and what the subject is because, like you, I held everything in and I didn't know it until I was in my 20s when my step-grandmother, we were talking about
Speak
being
loud.
a little girl. And I would share with people. I'd share with my family things that I saw, things that I felt, things that I knew ahead of time. And she told me, oh yes, that's right, you were a weird little girl, weren't you? And, you know, and I thought back and I wasn't a weird little girl. I was real normal. It was okay for some of our family members to remember when my aunt was being abducted, she started crying. And they opened the door, and here the 6-month-old baby is levitating in the air and flew down onto the bed. And that wasn't weird to them. They were...
Yeah, there's that word again.
It wasn't weird. I hate that word because I've been called weird.
It was unique.
It was, or it was special. It was supernatural. Special. It was an abduction or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I recommend Kim, the story Bud Hopkins talks about. One of his patients who later wrote some books, Kim Clarksburg. Her abduction experience is very similar to what you were talking about. Some of the elements. Everybody know about Kim Clarksburg? What do you think?
Fascinating. Heard
Yeah,
3 hours on Coast to Coast AM a few months ago, and that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, professional lady, college educated, beautiful woman, has nothing to gain by bringing a stigma, just being open and honest, telling her story. Kim Clarksburg, her the guy that she worked with in support was Bud Hopkins, Dr. Bud Hopkins.
I think I heard her on.
Everybody know about Bud Hopkins, right? Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I had an aunt that I didn't even know had a very similar experience, and it was violent, and it was bad. She lost a husband over it. He divorced her. They committed her to Rusk. Her family did for 2 weeks. Doped her up because they didn't have a clue how to deal with this kind of thing. Very similar to Kim Clarksburg. Now, those that know about Kim Clarksburg knows how traumatic that is. I mean, she, you know, hers was like that, and it freaked her out. And her mother, they called the police over and everything.